Welcome back to Close Up, continuing our conversation with Senator Kelly Ayotte. And 6 years goes by fast. When I was reading that it was 2010.
I can tell just from my kids how fast it goes by.
I bet. Well, as you look back, we touched on this a little bit. As you look back, though, what do you consider to be your crowning achievements? I mean, what do you think the most impactful stuff was that you did?
Well, as I mentioned before, the work on the heroin epidemic, the Comprehensive Addiction Recovery Act, and the $2 billion that just got included in the 21st Century Cures Bill, all the work that I've done there, that's so important. There's more to do, but that's a really important building block to help New Hampshire.
But you do so much more, too, that people never hear about, really.
Yeah, and then so much in terms of issues helping our military, whether it's preserving the A-10 for close air support, whether it's stopping money from going to our enemies and saving millions of taxpayer dollars, or on weapons programs like the Missile to Nowhere that shouldn't have happened, whether it's actually standing up for our men and women in uniform when they tried to cut their retirement pay in Washington, and I stood up on unfair budget cuts and really making sure I was a clear voice on keeping the country safe when I disagreed with many of the Obama administration policies on what they were doing and where they were taking, whether Guantanamo, issues like the Iran agreement, where I was certainly a strong player in terms of opposing that agreement and what was happening there. And then issues helping our small businesses. I was always there fighting on regulatory issues that were burdening them, on healthcare issues. I fought to help have the medical device tax suspended for 2 years, and in many other areas. So what I looked at it was how can I be a voice for New Hampshire and fight for the people of the state? And then I always, on every committee, looking to cut spending, figure out ways we're wasting spending, because we've still got huge amount of debt. And I really hope that the new Congress doesn't lose sight of that when it comes to our children.
Yeah, in this election cycle where there's so much theater noise, it doesn't seem like we talked a lot about the national debt.
No, it didn't, but it's a really important issue, and I hope it's got to be a top priority for the strength of the nation.
All right, so what's next? I mean, have you spent any time thinking about the next step, next chapter?
Yeah, I've been regrouping with my family, and obviously heading into Christmas and the New Year, we're getting geared up for the holidays. So I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I know one thing: love our state. I was born here. We live in Nashua. That's where we're staying, and I'm always going to be looking for ways, even as a private citizen, to serve New Hampshire in some capacity. So you can count on me to be involved in causes that I care about and for our state, no matter what I'm doing.
Is everything on the table? I mean, 2020, you could be examining another Senate run if you wanted to against Jeanne Shaheen.
Well, I just came through a really tough election, close election, as you know, Josh, hard fought.
Sure.
And so at this point, I'm regrouping. But for me, it is about service. And so, if local events I'll be involved in, and just things that matter to New Hampshire, that will always be a part of who I am. And
so if you see something you don't like, whether it's a state level or the federal level, are you going to speak out? Because obviously you still have a voice, and you're still respected by a lot of members of the Republican Party who are very disappointed you're not going back down to Washington.
Josh, I've never been shy, so I'm sure once in a while you'll hear from me when there's something to be said, and I'll be engaged on issues that I care about. There's no doubt. And listen, I spent my life in this state. I'm not going anywhere. I love this state. And most of all, I just want your listeners to understand how grateful I am for having the opportunity to serve.
Well, moving forward, so Jennifer Horn is leaving as the state chairman of the Republican Party. Governor-elect Chris Sununu has signaled his support for State Senator Jeannie Forrester.
Yes.
What kind of job do you think she's inheriting, and what does she need to do moving forward?
First of all, let me thank Jennifer for her dedication and hard work. She's been tireless and a really strong voice for our party, so I'm grateful for her service. And I know Jeannie really well. I think she'll do a great job. Her service was stellar as a state senator. Obviously, she ran for governor. She understands what it's like to run in a campaign. I think that she gets along really well with members of the party, and she'll grow the party. So I'm excited to see what she does as chair of the party, and I think that she'll do very well.
Does the job change at all under this administration, do you believe? I mean, obviously, the role of the chair is to, keep the health of the GOP at the state level high. But there's also voices out there. With Donald Trump the presidency, a lot of things that he's going to do are going to be second guessed. Do you think that the state chairs have a role in either pointing those out or explaining things or dismissing some of the rumors that are out there?
Well, I think that there's always a strong voice for the state chair of the party to really be a voice of the party and to be out there not only helping create the grassroots support for the party, but also to have really a spokesperson voice. So I expect that Jeannie Forrester will do that, and that's always been a traditional role of the chair.
Yeah, Governor-elect Chris Sununu, he is going into office with a Republican majority in the House and Senate. What do you expect to see at the state level? I mean, is this something you're going to be watching closely? Because I know down in Washington, sometimes I come up to you and say, hey, what do you think about this at the State House? You're like, I didn't actually catch it.
Yeah, I'm a resident of the state. Of course I'll be watching closely, but I really wish Chris Sununu the greatest, because I think that he and the Republican legislature, that he'll be really taking on some of the problems that have been ignored in the state and making sure that this is the best place to work and to raise a family, and more jobs here and a better climate for more jobs here. And you know, he's got to take on the heroin epidemic and take it on rolling up his sleeves. And he's got issues that were left by the last administration that need to be addressed, like at DCUAF and other places. But I know he has a strong plan. I think that he goes into it really with a vision of knowing what to do with the Republican legislature, and I'll be excited to watch what he does.
He's going to have to appoint or nominate a new attorney general here in New Hampshire, top cop. You know something about the job. What if he called you up and said, hey, Senator? Would you? I mean, is that something you'd even consider? Is the prosecutor in you still burn?
Loved that job, and it was a great privilege to serve as Attorney General. But you know, I think that that's a job that I loved. I respect the people that work there so much, but I'm sure he'll be calling on someone else to serve as Attorney General.
I mean, nobody more qualified than you.
Yeah, but Josh, love the job. It's a job that I will cherish my time there, but I'm really going to be looking to regroup with my family and I think take on some new challenges.
Yeah. Obviously, you did point to the election that you went through. Expensive, it was bitter, it was tough, and it was very close at the end. Have you had the opportunity to talk to Governor Hassan about what she should expect going down there?
I have not. I've spoken with her, obviously, post-election and greeted her, but we've not talked about the Senate itself. So I know that there's an orientation and that there's a whole process where you learn about how to put things together, and certainly if she wants to call me for any advice, I'm happy to give it.
And what is the thing that surprised you most when you first arrived? I know 6 years ago, a lot of things happened between now and then, but was there something that caught you off guard or you just weren't expected or prepared for?
You know, I think what surprises you most is just there are people, you know, that you maybe see on television, you meet them as a person and you realize, hey, we're all people down there, and it's really important to get to know your colleagues so that you can find people to work with to get things done. And the other thing is that I think people realize this from the outside, it takes a long time sometimes to get things done, too long. And when you're used to going from an executive position like I was, like as Attorney General, where I could say, we're going to go pursue this case or we're going to do this, you can get things done faster. And so you have to understand that, you know, be able to push as hard as you can. You got to push hard to get legislation passed. Like the heroin legislation I worked on took 2 years, but I pushed that legislation every single day. So that part of it is something, you know, I think I knew it would take longer, but it takes longer than you even think. And I wish we could shorten that time, truthfully.
On that note, you must be pleased to hear that Governor-elect Pence, when addressing the Governors Association, I have about a minute to go here, but said that, you know what, this is going to be now more state control. We'll give you block grants from the federal government, but you guys,
I think that's a huge improvement. We need to give the states more control. We need to allow states to design solutions that work for them. And that's really important. It shouldn't be one size fits all from Washington. That's been one of the big, huge issues with the healthcare law. And so I think that is a very positive statement from the incoming vice president to say that we're going to allow states and local people to craft solutions instead of them all coming from Washington, because Washington is not, you know, Washington doesn't know what's best for New Hampshire. New Hampshire does.
You know, obviously a lot of people are going to be talking about the opioid and heroin crisis here because it is #1, and regardless of how long it takes down there, it's still a problem every day. So, well, I appreciate everything that you've done.
Josh.
Congratulations on all the work that you did. It's great to see you.
Appreciate it. Great to see you as well. Happy
We're right
holidays.
back with more. Stay with us.